Bruno Fernandes has made it into my Game Week 1 draft, and I think he might be here to stay alongside my 4 locked-in players and a few cheeky differentials. So in today's video, I'll be revealing my updated draft and telling you everything about it. So as always, if you're looking forward to it, make sure you do drop a like and of course hit that subscribe button for daily fantasy content. Enough waffling, let's get into today's video. So first up, I think it's always important to stay in the loop of what is happening during pre-season. Now, of course, some teams play other sides which are just simply championship level. We can't really read too much into it. However, I think there's been some standout moments that really do impact what we are doing going into game week 1. And the first thing is going to be Ollie Watkins scoring 3 goals in 3 matches. It basically has been copy-paste in this Aston Villa team in their opening games. It's been Rodgers scoring, Watkins getting the assist, or vice versa. Now, I think Watkins is one of those players that has been hugely overlooked. We've discussed that in some of my previous videos. And I think when we are looking to bring in players that have guaranteed minutes, great fixtures and proven assets, I don't think they come much better than Ollie Watkins. And the fact that he is delivering in this preseason campaign, yes, there are a few rumours about him going to Man United. I don't think those are going to happen. I think people are overlooking Watkins, and for me, this is the sort of recency bias that I always like to have when I do lock in certain players. Now, it's really important right now that managers do understand which players haven't actually featured in pre-season yet. I'm really surprised to see the ownership of both Gabriel and Dominic Solanke because both of those haven't played any minutes during this pre-season. We had a most recent game for Spurs up against Newcastle, and Thomas Frank came out and suggested, well, he said, that Solanke is still not fit for this game. So that really isn't good preparation for both their Super Cup game and of course game week 1. The same applies to Gabriel. If Gabriel's not available, that only makes him not an option, but it also slightly diminishes Arsenal's clean sheet odds. Personally, that's how I feel. I think the drop-off is there for managers. Next up, Füllkrug and Jarrod Bowen are playing as a front 2 in these past 2 games. Now, in their most recent fixture, both scored, which is really promising. And for those managers that viewed Jarrod Bowen as a bit overpriced and as a forward now not an option, I feel like the tide is starting to turn a little bit. I feel like managers are actually looking at Jarrod Bowen and thinking penalties, guaranteed game time. Yes, he gets a less point for a goal being a forward now, but he's still great value at 8 million. And the one that I have my eye on is going to be Füllkrug, 6 million, really injury hit season last year. But this is a guy who is a proven goal scorer. And if he does play as a front 2 alongside Jarrod Bowen, almost the big man, little man combination, I'm really interested in Füllkrug at 6 million. And thankfully, we got one more pre-season to keep an eye on for West Ham. If he does well in that, he might make it into my team. A player that, spoiler alert, may have made it into my team is going to be Juve. Now, a new signing for West Ham who is playing on the left-hand side. In their most recent game, played as a left wing back. Now, of course, Wan-Bissaka is the one that everybody is buying, playing as a right wing back. But if you want to be a little bit different, he is 1% owned in the game, the same price, and basically playing the same position as Wan-Bissaka just on the other side. And I was really impressed with what I saw in West Ham's last game. Some great deliveries into the box, actually picking up an assist. And what I've heard is he's going to be their main man on that left-hand side as long as they play a 3-5-2, which they have done already. For me, I want to look at teams that have remained the same. And Crystal Palace, as of now, are still that team. Yes, there are rumours of Eze leaving, but while he is still featuring for Crystal Palace and he isn't throwing a huff like Isak, like Vissa, I'm interested in these players. And Mateta continues to score, and I think he is being a little bit overlooked. Bruno Fernandes doing Bruno Fernandes things, 3 goals in 3 matches, slight variation in positions, at times playing a double pivot. Last night playing, of course, in their game against Everton, playing as more of a 10 behind Cunha and Mbeumo. I like Bruno Fernandes. I haven't kept that a secret. It's just squeezing him into the team at 9 can be tough, but I've found a way in my draft, so I can't wait to show you how I've done that. Mark Gui's got a loan move to Sunderland. That's important. He's a 4.5 million forward. If you're bench boosting and you're putting him in, I wouldn't be doing that. There's rumours that he isn't going to be starting game week 1 or suggestions that he's match fit. And I think there is competition for places in that front 3. So it's not like he's going to walk in and be a 90-minute man. You basically have an image of 4.5 to never play him unless it is desperate. And finally, we're in a position right now with friendlies where teams are wrapping up. Teams like Chelsea haven't even begun. Man City haven't really begun since the Club World Cup. So the next week and a half are absolutely key. We got to keep an eye on teams because they're going to start playing their best 11s. And importantly, we're going to have the Community Shield where we can keep an eye on Liverpool and, of course, Crystal Palace. That's going to be huge. And, of course, the Super Cup. Seeing what Spurs have got, because 3 days afterwards, they've got their Game Week 1 game. So if Kudus plays 90 minutes, I'll be a little bit worried about keeping him in my teams. Solanke, does he feature in that Super Cup? If he does, suddenly he comes back into all of our teams. So that's just a bit of a roundup. I'll do another one of these in a future video once we've got some more information. But let me know if I've missed anything that you've noted in pre-season. Now, I spoke about how I've got 4 players that are effectively locked into my Game Week 1 draft. And the 4 players you can see on your screens here. Now, I got a bit more of a deep dive in my previous video where I covered off my essentials, the players that are being close to essential. So please do check out that video if you want a bit more of a in-depth analysis on why these players I believe are great picks. But just to give you an overview, Murillo right now is the defender that every time I'm building a draft remains in it. 5.5 million, really good fixtures in Nottingham Forest, a bonus point magnet, and based on their stats from last season, he is going to be incredible for defensive contributions. And while Milenkovic is much better from a goal threat, I think Murillo's defensive contributions are way more predictable than that of Milenkovic scoring in any particular fixture. So I think Murillo's going to tick over much better than that of Milenkovic. And right now, I think he probably is worth the 0.5 million more than Neco Williams. But if I was to move on from Murillo, it would only be because I'm being tempted by Neco Williams' 0.5 million that I can invest elsewhere in my squad. Otherwise, if it's just a defender versus defender situation, I would prefer Murillo. But of course, the general squad of 15 has to be taken into consideration. In terms of the 2 midfielders, yes, there are people going without Mo Salah. I think it's going to be one of those seasons where it could be a huge season for Salah, and not in a good way. We might not actually see a drop-off from him, but maybe a different way that Liverpool play. Last season, I felt like Arne Slot came in, wasn't expecting to win the league, but obviously found a way of just completely getting the best out of Mo Salah. And he had players in the midfield like Szoboszlai, McAllister, Gravenberch, who were happy to do all the doggy work. And it basically was Salah. Now we've got a few more superstars in this team. We've got Hugo Ekitike, we've got Florian Wirtz coming to the team. We have actually effective fullbacks now, like Frimpong, like Kirkes. So I don't know if we're actually going to see Salah fully utilised like Arne Slot done last year. He might do. Why change anything that isn't broken? But I am slightly cautious on Mo Salah. But going into Game Week 1, would I rather have him in my team? 100%. Knowing that I can move off him if what I'm starting to feel might come true does actually come true. Cole Palmer, another one. Yes, Chelsea, I believe, are going to be a bit undercooked going into Game Week 1. It was a great Club World Cup. But if you only play one pre-season fixture going into Game Week 1, that doesn't fill me with huge confidence. But once again, I feel like it's quite a scary prospect not going without Cole Palmer for Game Week 1 because the fixtures are good. And finally up front, now, his ownership doesn't suggest that he should be essential, but for me, Ollie Watkins is the guy. I can't believe someone like Goalkeepers, who hasn't kicked a football in the Premier League and only played 15 minutes for Arsenal, is double the ownership of Ollie Watkins, who has proven each and every season he's going to get you double-digit goals and sometimes double-digit assists. He's going to be the main man in this team. Now, I know Milan, however you pronounce him, is getting minutes during pre-season. But what I've seen, it doesn't look like he's going to be taking him away from Watkins necessarily. I think Watkins is still the main man. And I think Villa's fixtures are good enough for Watkins to be in our teams. And I just don't see a world where I'm going to be without him. I think I'd much rather start the season with Watkins and pivot towards someone at a similar price or downgrade to a cheaper option. I just don't feel like I want to go without Watkins for that opening game week. So that's how the current team is looking from an essentials perspective. Let's get into the Game Week 1 draft. So first up, my Game Week 1 goalkeepers. And I have to put it out there, this is the least locked in positions in my entire draft because I never put too much importance on the goalkeepers. However, there's a few things that I have taken going into this season. First and foremost, I think the 5.5s are just not worth it. I think there are better defenders from those premium teams. And someone like a Jordan Pickford, while I think he will definitely tick over, I just don't see the point in spending 5.5 million in him when you could just get a defender at the same price point who also have those defensive contributions like a Tarkowski and also a little bit of goal threat. So the 5.5s have come completely off the radar. Now, prior to this, every single draft I was having Robert Sanchez between the sticks. which I still think is a great pick at 5 million. But I was looking at the fixtures to Chelsea. Palace at home, I don't think is a clean sheet. West Ham away, not an easy fixture. Fulham at home, always been a bit of a bogey team. Brentford, Man United, Brighton, Liverpool, Forest. I actually think I maybe am looking at these fixtures and don't see as many clean sheets as other people. I might be wrong here, but I do feel like the fixtures are a bit more difficult. So I asked myself, is 0.5 million for Sanchez worth it? Or do I just go for a 4.5 million and chase save points and hopefully a few clean sheets along the way? And even though I didn't love the pick, because of what's happened with Brentford, the players that are being sold, the managerial change, I currently have landed on Kelleher. Now, the fixtures, Forest, Villa, Sunderland, Chelsea, Fulham, Man United, they're not ideal fixtures, but I do anticipate a lot of saves during this period, and we might actually see a bit more of a defensive Brentford team and a bit more of a resolute team as opposed to what we've seen under Thomas Frank with all those big chances created. I don't really know what we're going to get from Brentford, and that is the slight concern. So I'm just currently landed on Kelleher because I'm not totally convinced on the 5 million goalkeepers right now either. So I'd rather go 4.5. I've got Vikinski at 4. Still don't know whether he has a chance of becoming the number 1. It sounds like Vicario will retain the shirt, but if there's an opportunity of Kinski getting it, I might as well put him in the team if I don't anticipate having 3 attacking Spurs players. So we're currently on that for the goalkeepers, just to free up 0.5 million to invest elsewhere in this team. Next up, moving into the defenders, and as we've spoken about, Murillo for me right now is locked in at 5.5 million. He gets me into that Nottingham Forest defence that I'm anticipating to pick up a few clean sheets along the way, which I think is great. And as we've spoken about, I think he's great for defensive contributions and for bonus points. So I really am trying to do my best to keep him locked into this team and build defenders around it. And I think this kind of structure is where I am landing. You can get a 6 million defender, you can get your 5.5 in Murillo, and you can have your 2 4.5 millions and a 4 million defender. Now, in an ideal world, I'd probably rather have 3 4.5 million defenders that I could rotate. However, this is how we're landing with it right now. So in terms of the 6 million defenders, and again, I'll probably do another video deep diving into defenders in particular, but I actually am not in love with all of the 6 millions. Now, in terms of Liverpool, it's only Van Dijk for me. I don't love Frimpong. I think Conor Bradley's going to steal minutes from him. I do like Kirkes on that left-hand side, but I just can't get out of my head that Robertson's just going to sit on the bench for eternity. So I think Van Dijk's a safe option, and of course, great on the bonus defensive contributions as well. But Liverpool's fixtures, Newcastle in game week 2, Arsenal in game week 3, I don't love it, but either side of that, I can anticipate some clean sheets. So I'm thinking more of a long-term pick with Van Dijk as opposed to those opening 3 games. So I definitely could see Semenyo and co actually doing a bit of damage in transitions if there's anything like we've seen in pre-season from Liverpool. But he's locked in right now. Arsenal, don't love it. I think the fixtures are really difficult. United, I think, will score. Liverpool in 3, City in 5, Newcastle in 6. I'm not completely there yet. Chelsea's Cucurella is on the radar. Now, in terms of the 4.5s, we're blessed with a lot of 4.5s, but I can't help myself. When I see a 1% owned player up against a 35% owned player from the same team, I got to go for the 1%. And that is going to be Juve. Now, yes, I might be running off a bit of recency bias after a good performance in their friendly against Bournemouth, but he is effectively playing the same position as Wan-Bissaka, just on the other side of the field as a left wing back. And what I've seen from West Ham fans is that the anticipation is that Juve will be a starter for them. If you're a West Ham fan watching this and I've got that completely wrong, please do let me know in the comment section. It will help out my team. But right now, 1% owned Juve playing in the same sort of positions. I'd rather go for that and really chase the upside where we can get those small wins along the way. And I've gone for Richards at 4.5 million. Now, don't get me wrong. In that Crystal Palace team, Munoz is much better and Lacroix is much better. Lacroix is going to be fantastic for defensive contributions and also offers goal threat. But if 4.5 million for Richards look good on defensive contributions, so I will anticipate him slowly picking them up across the course of the season. Again, we only need him for the opening 6 to 8 game weeks before we possibly wildcard. Rotates quite well with the defenders that I've selected and also my 5th midfielder if we choose to do that. But I also want to say there are a lot of other good 4.5s out there that could definitely steal the position. Anderson at Fulham is on the radar 100%. And there's a few others that we will talk about in future videos. And lastly, we got Esteve at 4 million. he's just there as bench fodder. However, game week 2, if we require him at home against Sunderland, could actually be a great game. So the defence, I like the structure. I think I'm going to land on this, but I think the 4.5s could change the closer we get to the deadline. Take a look at my game week 1 midfielders, and this is where the changes have been made from my previous draft. So as we spoke about, Salah and Palmer are locked in unless I see some changes in those next few weeks. And of course, the Community Shield in particular for Liverpool. Maybe Florian Wirtz just looks irresistible and maybe he can cover Mo Salah. I don't think he can, by the way, for those that are thinking about it. So Salah and Palmer are locked in. But with the structure that I've been building, you definitely could still have a 9 or 8.5 million midfielder along those, a 6.5 and a 5.5. And that's where we've landed right now. And that is why Bruno Fernandes has come into the team. So I think Bruno Fernandes will be one of the best FPL picks in the game, regardless. Guaranteed 90 minutes. On penalties, confirmed. We've had a penalty during pre-season. No change, and we weren't anticipating a change. He's still the big dog in this team. 3 goals in pre-season. Playing in a double pivot at times, also in the number 10. So there is slight reservation that maybe him playing in a double pivot is not really going to get the best out of him. But if we do see him operate in a sort of 10 position, then oh my God, at 9 million, he becomes an essential player for all of our teams. What we know about him as well is that he's an all-action midfielder. Defensive contributions, he also has the opportunity of picking up those. So could I see him in these opening game weeks nicking a penalty or an assist and then getting defensive contributions alongside that and just getting bonus points chucked in? 100%. Now, I get it. Man United are a tough team to predict, but with these opening fixtures, Arsenal in game week 1, not ideal. But then Fulham, Burnley in game week 3, Man City in game week 4, Chelsea, Brentford. Yes, they are difficult fixtures, but in a weird way, I never look at Bruno Fernandes, look at bad fixtures and think automatically no points can be had by him. I actually think the opposite. I think when there are big games, he's a player that does step up in these opportunities. And I actually think Man United haven't been too bad during pre-season. I'm anticipating them to put up a much tougher test against these big teams than what they have of last season. So maybe I'm being a bit bullish too much on Bruno Fernandes, but right now, I think I'd rather start the season with him and then move off, because with Florian Wirtz, who really is the competitor here, he saves me 0.5 million, which is great. And then I can invest that elsewhere in this team. Straight away, I could do Kelleher to Sanchez, which could be deemed a huge improvement. But with Florian Wirtz's opening fixtures for Liverpool, Bournemouth at home in game week 1, that is a great fixture. But then Newcastle and then Arsenal in the following fixtures. I would say those 3, Bournemouth, Newcastle, Arsenal, are as difficult as that of Arsenal, Fulham and Burnley for a player who is going to play guaranteed 90 minutes on penalties as well. And for that reason, I'm currently leaning towards having Bruno Fernandes over Florian Wirtz, knowing that if Florian Wirtz suddenly by game week 4 just becomes an absolute essential, I can simply downgrade Bruno Fernandes to him once we get to that point. So that's where I'm currently at. In Diet 6.5, I'm starting to lean more towards him as the pick. Guaranteed minutes on penalties, and Everton's fixtures are good. Leeds, Brighton, Wolves, Villa at home, Liverpool, West Ham, Crystal Palace at home. I think they're good opening fixtures. I think he's a good player. I think we saw enough last season to suggest I want him over Kudus. However, the Super Cup might swing me towards Kudus if we see good things, but I think Brennan Johnson might nick minutes away from Kudus at times. Finally, Anderson at 5.5. We know he's a monster for defensive contributions, so even if he doesn't get attacking returns, he should pick up, not consistently, but at decent times, 2 defensive contribution points, which is important. And his baseline might almost become 4 points, which at 5.5, I'd rather that than maybe chase the upside of an Adingra, for example. So that's how the midfield's currently landing. Salah, Palmer locked in. Bruno Fernandes could easily be him or Florian Wirtz if I feel like I need the 0.5 million. And Dye feels fantastic, but I do like the idea of Morgan Rogers. I just can't get him in the team right now. So that's how the midfield's looking. Let me know your thoughts. So finally, moving into my forwards. Now, I've got to put it out there because I haven't really touched on it. I'm currently not planning on bench boosted in game week 1. Surprise, surprise. Because my bench right now would be Kinski, Esteve, Richards and Mark Gui. Not a good position to be in at all. So, of course, I'm able to invest a bit more in what I would say is 12 players as opposed to 15. But I haven't ruled out the bench boost. I will be doing a video either tomorrow or Wednesday comparing a bench boost squad versus a squad like this and understanding whether using bench boost in game week 1 is actually justifiable. So make sure if you haven't already, you are subscribed to the channel, hit that notification bell so you do get alerted when that sort of video does come out. But the front three right now, we got Ollie Watkins. I've spoken about him. You know I love him. 9 million, I think, is fantastic. It's a great price point that allows us to pivot to other players if they become quote-unquote essential. I'm not on the Goalkeepers train right now. With Arsenal's opening fixtures, Man United, Leeds, Liverpool, Forest, Man City, Newcastle, I'm happy to wait on Arsenal attackers pretty much in general and then understand where the value lies in that Arsenal attack. Because if Goalkeepers doesn't hit the ground running and Arteta basically has to win this league, he might not have to persist with him each and every game. We might see Kai Havertz take a bit more of a starting role. And who knows what will happen with Goalkeepers then? Does he get pushed out to the left? I don't think it's as easy as Arteta just saying, Goalkeepers, I'm giving you 90 minutes each and every week and I'm benching Kai Havertz. So I just don't see that happening. So Watkins for me is locked in this team. And right now at 7.5, controversially, I've gone for Mateta. Now, I've looked at the 7.5 million options. We've got João Pedro. I'm not totally sold on João Pedro yet. He's been in the Premier League too long to have too much information and never score a hatful of goals. And I'm slightly concerned with him not being on penalties, whether he can be sustainably a great pick. Then, of course, we have got Solanke, injured. No idea whether he's going to play, so I've ruled him out. Chris Wood, brilliant player. Probably should be the standout 7.5. Something in the back of my mind is just telling me that Forest might struggle at the start of this season, but maybe I'm wrong there, and Wood is probably the safer pick. But I look at Mateta, penalties, guaranteed game time. Palace, one of those teams that if I see, when I turn on my phone, they've won 3-0, I know it's going to be Munoz, Eze, Mateta, Sarr in some sort of capacity. No one else is getting any points in that team. And Palace's fixtures, I don't think the Chelsea fixture is as bad as others deeming. Palace will be coming into this with 3 pre-seasons and the Community Shield. Chelsea will be coming in with basically 1 friendly, which is not a good position. Then they got Forest at home. If Forest have not hit the ground running, fantastic. Villa, Sunderland, West Ham. I think their fixtures are actually not too bad. And Mateta right now is a player that, could I see him just hitting the ground running? I personally can. So he's in at 7.5 million. Now it's worth noting, if I could get that up to Jarrod Bowen, I actually do like that. So for example, Fernandes down to Florian Wirtz, Mateta up to Bowen. I haven't ruled that out. Equally, if we see Füllkrug do it once again for West Ham, I haven't even ruled out downgrading Mateta to Füllkrug and giving me 1.5 million to invest elsewhere in this team. And then really, that is fantastic. But what I love about the 7.5 is that you're not too far down so that if I need to go elsewhere, I can. If your second forward is Füllkrug at 6 million and suddenly a player in the 7.5 hits the ground running, where are you getting that 1.5 to invest elsewhere? That is my concern with avoiding the 7.5s. And finally, Marc Guéhi, great for a 4.5, but please do not be buying him thinking that he's going to be Sunderland's number 9 playing 90 minutes. That would not be the case. He'll be rotated in, he'll be rotated out. Typically with these sort of teams, the manager will just play everybody to try and get a winning formula. Hopefully Guéhi is part of that. But that's how the team's looking right now. Let me show you how it would look in game weeks 1 to game weeks 4 or 5, for example, just to show you how the rotations would look. Okay, so we'll just take a quick look at how this team would rotate each and every game. We can show you who my captaincy also would be in those specific game weeks. So game week 1, pretty obvious selection here. I would bench Esteve, Richards, Marc Guéhi, and Kinski. So this is pretty obvious. Mo Salah would be my captain. In terms of the players that I'm really missing, if we come down to the fixtures here, just to give you a bit of an idea, really, the only ones that I look at and think, ooh, I haven't got a piece of that, probably would be Spurs up against Burnley. But like I said, I can see a bit in this Community Shield, see if anybody actually deems essential, because if Solanke's not available, and I think Kudus isn't actually as fantastic in its output, that I don't feel compelled to always go for a Spurs attacker. Maybe a defender needs to be on my radar. Coming into game week 2, and we'll take a look at how the team's looking. Now, really, I might be looking to go for a back 4, but I need to state that with defensive contributions being brought in this year, I actually think that is not a bad position to be in. Now, Anderson could come in, but Kelleher, okay. Virgil van Dijk away against Forest, Newcastle, not ideal. That is where you would prefer to have an Arsenal defender. The other 3, okay. And Salah, Palmer, Bruno Fernandes. captaincy would be quite difficult in this particular game week, not having an Arsenal asset. It either would be Mo Salah or I would put it on someone like a Cole Palmer. I think there are options, but they're not fantastic options in game week 2. And this is probably the downfall of not having, for example, as we've spoken about, an Arsenal attacker. This is where it could shoot us a little bit in this situation. Now, coming into game week 3, Kelleher looks great away against Sunderland, so that's not too bad. Then we got Virgil van Dijk, Diouf and Murillo. Not too bad in defence. Anderson and Dye, Salah, Palmer and Bruno Fernandes. Now, this is where Bruno Fernandes does give us a bit of an advantage, because I would be very tempted to throw the captaincy on him for home game against Burnley. Watkins up top alongside Mateta, playing up against one another, but again, isn't the biggest concern for myself. I think both teams are susceptible defensively at times. Then coming into game week 4, again, shifting a little bit to a back 4. Virgil van Dijk, Diouf, Richards, Murillo. Not ideal, but would I rather have Anderson in there against Arsenal away? Probably not. Again, in terms of captaincy, that's pretty obvious. That would be Mo Salah once again. And Mateta at home against Sunderland. I think that's going to be a time where a lot of managers might be scrambling to get him in. And Watkins away against Everton. Game week 5, just to run it up to, Kelleher away against Fulham, not too bad. Back 4 looks perfectly fine. Midfield 4 looks great, and a front 2 of Watkins away against Sunderland and Mateta away against West Ham. Again, I'm not panicking about playing a back 4 this season. I think that's actually been quite fashionable. And then rotating in Dye out or Anderson and really sticking with this front 2, I think is going to be my strategy going forward. So that's how the team's looking. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. I'll be really interested to know. Yes, guys, okay, so that's going to wrap up today's video looking at my latest draft ahead of game week 1. As you can see, I'm starting to lock in some players, and with the preseason information that we're getting, I'm starting to move closer towards players than what I was a week ago. And that probably will change again in a week's time. So again, if you're not subscribed to the channel, make sure you are already, because there will be daily fantasy content between now and that game week 1 deadline. And of course, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to drop a like, always massively appreciated. Any questions or any thoughts, pop them in the comment section. I'll be sure to get to them. Have an amazing day. Take care. Cheers.